Texans have traveled from around the state to pay their respects and mourn alongside the Uvalde community as they continue to bury the 21 people killed on May 24th inside Robb Elementary.
As Governor Greg Abbott has called for special committees to discuss school safety and mental health, people mourning at Robb Elementary tell our Camelia Juarez what they want to see happen in the aftermath of this tragedy.
We don't need something that's going to rip and shred a child or an adult to pieces. We just don't need that. And I want to make sure they know that we vote. And this is not acceptable to us.
Jackie Peterson is a multi-generation Texan and a Republican who is confused by Republican leader response, wondering why high-powered guns remain in the hands of civilians.
We are a Republican family, and that my husband and I, my sister and her husband, all agree we need to ban those assault rifles. And we need to get those weapons out of the public's hands.
Jennifer Chang drove from Houston to feel firsthand the pain of Uvalde's broken heart. She says legislators should raise the age someone can have a semi-automatic weapon from 18 to 21, and she worries about undiagnosed mental illness.
I think a lot of these school shootings are because these teenagers and young adults are isolating themselves, and that's like a red flag. So I think if they catch it when they're small and focus on mental health.
One parent, veteran, and college instructor, Alexis Perez, says there should be a mental health screening and people interested in owning a gun. She says she has lost fellow vets to suicide, so this could keep people from hurting others as well as themselves.
Definitely a mental background check just to make sure somebody's stable, and then have it kind of like to reinforce it maybe every couple years.
Now, after what happened here at Robb Elementary, the governor is calling on schools to check their security procedures, and he's calling on legislative committees to look at issues like school safety and mental health. Now, so far, none of the ideas proposed by the people we spoke to today have been promised by state or local representatives. Tim, Myra.
All right, Camelia, thank you. Today, a San Antonio doctor speaking in Washington, D.C. about what trauma surgeons deal with when they treat a shooting victim and the root cause in the rise of gun violence. During the American College of Surgeons news conference, doctors called gun violence in the U.S. a public health crisis. Dr. Ronald Stewart, a trauma surgeon at University Health, described what he saw when treating the victims of the Uvalde mass shooting. He also talked about how an AR-15 damages the human body.
A high-capacity magazine-fed semi-automatic rifle such as the AR-15 causes extremely destructive tissue wounds. These wounds are horribly lethal at close range.
Dr. Stewart also treated victims of the Sutherland Springs mass shooting as well. President Joe Biden is set to make an address to the nation at around 6:30 p.m. in the wake of the mass shooting in Uvalde, Buffalo, and most recently, Tulsa. We'll carry that right here live on KSAT 12. You can also stream it on KSAT.com or on the KSAT News app.
New at 6, he died of a heart attack days after his wife was killed inside Robb Elementary. Joe Garcia's family honoring his decision to help patients in need. A registered donor, his corneas were donated, and 2 people this week receiving the transplants. Erica Hernandez with how that decision is making an immediate impact.
Yesterday, Irma Garcia and Joe Garcia were laid to rest in Uvalde. Joe, a registered donor, his family, making sure those wishes were honored. Now 2 people whom he never knew will benefit from his decision.
2 individuals will be able to see again, will be able to go back to their families, live that full life, and a part of Joe will live on through them.
Samara Nichols with the San Antonio Eye Bank says how important it is to find recipients quickly.
Once the cornea is donated, the preservation medium that it is contained in keeps that corneal cells, those are cells alive and viable for 14 days. So once that cornea is donated, we have up to 14 days that we need to transplant it.
The first patient received the transplant on Tuesday. And that second surgery taking place this morning by Dr. Kenneth Maverick here in Schertz. And he tells us a little more about how that procedure is just an in and out surgery.
We basically transplant someone who's passed on their cornea to somebody who needs a new cornea because their cornea is not clear. And that's a transplant that's done in the operating room. It usually takes about 30, 40 minutes, and it's highly successful.
There are an estimated 12 million people suffering from corneal blindness around the world, and Dr. Maverick hopes Joe's story is one that will inspire others to donate.
This is just a ray of light in a very dark time, but the human spirit lives on, and the ultimate sacrifice is organ donation.
Erica Hernandez, KSAT 12 News.
A San Antonio man now charged with murder and the death of his own mother. 31-year-old Fabian Rodriguez was arrested at the San Antonio airport yesterday. Arrest records accuse him of stabbing his mother to death on Monday while they were staying at an Airbnb. Investigators say the victim, 68-year-old Maritza Rodriguez, was found dead by the homeowner after another guest reported hearing screaming and arguing the night before. Investigators say surveillance cameras captured Fabian Rodriguez walking from the bathroom to the victim's room several times the night she died. He was also seen leaving the home the next morning with a bundle of bloody clothes.
San Antonio police say it could be a while before they know the name of the motorcycle rider killed in a Southside crash early this morning. They say that man was not carrying any identification when his motorcycle collided with a pickup at Probant and West Mitchell Streets. As Katrina Weber reports, police say there is no need for criminal charges against the other driver.
Two drivers originally heading in different directions on Probant met up in the worst way when police say one of them made a turn right into the other. They say it was the pickup driver who was attempting to turn onto West Mitchell when she crashed into the motorcycle just before 4 this morning. The biker, police say, had a helmet but was not wearing it. He suffered major injuries to his head and leg and died at the scene. The woman in the truck stopped and cooperated with police.
Police say at this point they're calling what happened here just a terrible accident. They say they found no reason to believe the driver was under the influence, and she told them she simply didn't see the man on the motorcycle.
Police believe the man who was killed was in his 30s or 40s, but they say he did not have any ID on him. They say it appears the woman in the truck, who was wearing scrubs, was either heading to or from work at the time. During the investigation, other drivers had to find another way to get where they were going. The street was shut down for about 2 hours. Katrina Weber, KSAT 12 News.
Take a look at this. The Texas Department of Public Safety investigating this small plane crash near the Medina and Bexar County lines today. That plane went down near San Geronimo Air Park along Culebra Road, just a few miles west of Loop 1604. It happened this afternoon. No word on any injuries, but an ambulance could be seen there at the scene of the crash. We don't have many details on that crash right now. We're still working to get more information. We'll certainly pass it along to you when we have it.
Let's take a look at traffic out there right now. This is the camera here at Highway 281 in San Pedro, and not too much to report. Looks like everybody is on their way this evening. No traffic tie-ups around town to make you aware of. New at 6, the San Antonio City Council gave the go-ahead today for the police department to pursue a federal grant that would put up to another 50 officers on the streets. SAPD plans to use those extra officers to cover crime hotspots. But some of the newer voices on the council are not convinced that was the right way to go.
Motion carries.
In the end, only District 2's Jalen McKee Rodriguez and District 5's Terry Castillo voted against pursuing a grant for 50 new police positions. But they made their misgivings clear.
We keep adding police officers and our crime statistics continue to rise.
It is politically convenient just to say, oh, we need more officers, but it's not working. And it's putting more of my constituency in positions that's hard to get out of.
The East and West Side council members raised concerns like whether adding police officers is the best way to prevent crime and the increase to the police budget that would result. The city has to match a portion of the grant money during the 3-year period, and once it's over, it will have to cover the full cost. But the police chief says a more proactive police department requires more police.
It can't be stagnant. It has to grow with the population. It has to grow with the size of the city. And if it doesn't, you're going to leave yourself in a lurch.
And for other council members, more officers is what they want.
You've been over in District 3. You know they want more presence. You know they want... you know how frustrated they are.
Though the mayor denied that simply adding officers is the city's plan for reducing crime.
We create safe, quality communities, not by virtue of bigger police departments, but by creating and building community. And so we don't want to crowd out our budget.
Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Take a look outside with live cam this evening. It's 93 degrees. It's cooler than it was at 5 o'clock. We're getting there.
Cooler or not as hot?
Okay, that's right. That's right. Not as hot. That's the phrase this time of year.
Yeah, that's what I like to use this time of year. Now, we did have, that weak frontal boundary push in. It's basically draped right overhead at the moment, and that did influence temperatures a little bit. Instead of 99 that we had yesterday, 94 today, so a little bit of an improvement. Across the state, we were actually in the 70s and 60s for high temperatures up in the Panhandle. Locally, though, high temperatures mostly in the mid-90s. 95 for the high in Del Rio, 99 even the high temperatures in Cotulla and Pleasanton. You look outside right now, 93 degrees, dew point is 64. You notice a bit of humidity and not as much of a wind as well because of that weak frontal boundary that moved through. So we go forward this evening, partly cloudy. A gentle breeze. We're talking about 3 to 8 miles per hour and shifting around. By 8 o'clock, near 90, 10 o'clock, mid 80s, midnight right near 80 degrees. We'll talk about the record challenging heat in the days ahead, how hot it's going to get. Also, the latest on the potential tropical development in the Gulf and Caribbean and where that tropical moisture and rain is going to go in just a bit.
Welcome back. I'm Stefania Jimenez, and here's what we're working on for you tonight on the Nightbeat. As people continue to speak about gun control, a San Antonio mother is talking about her son's murder. Her hope that his killer is finally caught. And tonight we're going to sit down with Ethan Soto's mother. Also, a tragic last day of school for Northside ISD. One student killed in a crash. Tonight, neighbors are going to show us where it happened and what parents need to know about the 100 deadliest days for teen drivers. We'll see you for these stories and more tonight on the Nightbeat.
Thanks, Stephanie. A downtown park bringing greenery, a space for events, and a place for families and visitors to enjoy. It's all on its way. Civic Park at Hemisphere broke ground earlier this year, and the unique project will soon enter phase 2. Tiffany Huertas has an update on that project, which has been in the works for about 10 years now.
A construction crew at work, finishing phase 1 of Civic Park at Hemisphere.
Phase 1 also includes the promenade, which will extend the length of the park, and then the Great Lawn, which is the thing that everyone is looking forward to so we can host the city's biggest celebrations here at Hemisphere.
The city broke ground at Civic Park in January, and the project is moving along.
Recently, this project received $18 million from the 2022 bond approved by San Antonio voters to complete phase 2.
Phase 2 will include the entrance to the park and the Zócalo, a platform to host smaller community performances and festivals. Phase 1 opens fall of 2023. Phase 2 will open in time for the 2025 NCAA Men's Final Four.
So this is very much created for San Antonians, and we get the added benefit of visitors wanting to come here.
I do like the idea of having water and extra greenery around here and everything.
Tiffany Huertas, KSAT 12 News.
Let's take a look outside from Sky 12. You can see over the Tower Life building here downtown, the flag still at half staff this evening. Of course, everyone in our community still remembering those in Uvalde and what they're going through tonight. And certainly as that community and all of us really try to come together, there's a lot of those ceremonies and events that are happening outside. People have the weather in mind. Everybody across South Texas wanting to know, how hot is it going to be, Adam?
It's going to be hot and not as sticky in the days going forward. And in turn, I do think we will have some hotter temperatures because in the days going forward, when we see the little drop in the afternoon humidity, that means warmer afternoons. And so we're going to see that. Let's take a look at our rain chances, though. And you look at the rain chances and we're only at 20%. That's it. That's all we can drum up, about 20% tomorrow and then 0% through the weekend and on into next week. We won't have the moisture in the air. We won't have the instability. We'll just have dry air and a lot of sunshine. Now, earlier today, we picked up a few showers, basically from Bernie to Bergheim, Bulverde, Smithson Valley. Between a half inch to an inch within a few of those highly localized downpours that popped up. And right now in western Kerr County, we have some of that action as well. But it's going to be very short-lived. Big picture shows other parts of Texas getting some needed rainfall, and even parts of West Texas seeing some action from Mexico get organized and move eastward across the Rio Grande. Upper level high winning out, though, for the most part. Big Blue H, of course, we're no stranger to that this time of year. And overall, days going forward, we're just not going to have the ingredients for any type of rainfall, even not much in terms of clouds. It takes moisture to make clouds. We're not even going to have much of that in the air either. Here's the latest tropical development right now. Showers and thunderstorms stretching all the way to the Florida Keys and even South Florida at the moment, and of course across Cuba. The center of the system is actually still near Cancun. Now this is going to be headed to the northeast. That's moving to Florida, likely to become Tropical Storm Alex, probably remaining a low-end tropical storm, mostly because of stronger upper level winds that tend to cut off those tropical systems and prevent them from really developing a whole lot. However, it's going to have a lot of moisture with it, and that moisture, that's going to be headed to Cuba and Florida. As I mentioned, some of the showers already coming on shore, and over the next several days, parts of South Florida is likely to see 6 to 10 inches of rainfall. I mean, that's significant. That would be a drought buster for us over an extended period of time like that. I wish we could steer this more into our direction, but unfortunately, obviously that's not in the works. We can't do that. So 93 degrees out there right now. Dew point is 64. Dew points are still up a little bit. You feel a bit of stickiness in the air. Port SA, dew point is 65. Canyon Lake, a dewy of 70, and Rio Medina 67. Now, usually in the afternoons this time of year, we'll see that little drop off in the mugginess. The drier air aloft mixes down. And I think we're going to see more of that as we get into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. So starting late this weekend and on into next week, during the hottest part of the day, we'll have that drier air mix down, and that then warms up more efficiently and helps that temperature spike to triple digits. That dry air cools off nicely at night, but heats up very easily during the day. It's the desert air. It's like in deserts when it's cool in the morning but really hot in the afternoon. Pleasanton now 96, 89 in Kerrville, 90 in Rock Springs, 91 Helotes and Seguin, 94 currently in Devine. Now tomorrow morning we'll start the day for the most part in the lower 70s, a few locations mid 70s. Castroville, Stinson 73, Converse 73, Pleasanton about 75. Then by tomorrow afternoon, we shoot back into the 90s, but for the most part, mid-90s. Port SA 96, Rio Medina 95, Floresville and Nixon at 96 degrees. I think officially in San Antonio 96, but some lower 90s in the hill country. You look at the 12-hour forecast for tomorrow. Partly cloudy all day. We're not going to have those low, thick gray clouds that we often see because we don't have much of a wind. It takes that wind off the Gulf of Mexico to really cause those, and we just don't have that. Pretty much a calm wind, 3 miles per hour tomorrow morning. Still a 20% chance of a few isolated pop-ups because of boundaries in place and a little bit of instability out there. Near 90 at the noon hour, partly cloudy, 96 into the afternoon. And looking ahead, back into record challenging territory. Saturday, we're at 99, 1 degree shy of a record. Sunday, about 101. That would tie the record. Monday, 102, and that would break the record by 1 degree.
Lots of triple digits. Thanks, Adam.
All right, Larry, NBA Finals kick off tonight. Former Spur Derek White gets his first taste of the NBA Finals.
Yeah, after 4+ seasons with the Spurs, he was traded to the Boston Celtics during this past season, and he had to try to figure out how to fit in with this new squad while being aggressive at the same time. And in high school baseball, the Reagan Rattlers will take on Lake Travis tonight. Coming up.
The system and everything was similar, obviously with Coach Udoka's time in San Antonio, but just getting used to the little nuances that go with each team.
While Derek White was getting used to the Celtics, he was helping them reach the NBA Finals in big board sports. Boston and Golden State, two original NBA franchises, will meet in Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. 0 players on the Celtics roster have played in the NBA Finals before. Boston last appeared in the Finals 12 years ago, losing to the LA Lakers in 7 games. This year's team got here by sweeping the Nets in the first round and going 7 games to beat both the Bucks and the Heat. Former Spurs guard Derek White, who joined the Celtics at the NBA trade deadline in February, had the tough task of being himself on the court while trying to fit in with his new teammates and not rock the boat too much.
It was an adjustment. Just sometimes when you get to a new team, you're like, where do I fit in? But everybody has been just telling me to be aggressive, be me. So some games where I'll be a little just try to fit in and just out there. People will pull me aside. It's like, no, we need you to do what you do. So it's just good to have those reminders. And I love playing for like the coaching staff and the teammates have just really been pushing me to do what I do.
Golden State is making its 6th NBA Finals appearance in 8 seasons, the first team to do that since the Chicago Bulls from 1991 to 1998. The Warriors needed 5 games to beat the Nuggets in round 1, 6 to eliminate the Grizzlies, and then 5 more to knock off the Mavs in the Western Conference Finals. Warriors shooting guard Klay Thompson, a 3-time NBA champion, is 32 years old and was asked if he's now an old head on the team.
No. No. Although we've been doing this a long time, 32 is very, very young in the big picture of life. Just because our lives are out there in front of the camera, people see us grow up. So I think it's just, I still feel very young, and I still think I have great years ahead of me. But I mean, I think I have a lot of wisdom compared to where I was the first time we did this. So I can be an old head in that sense.
Game 1 is tonight at 8 here on KSAT 12. This is the first time an NBA Finals game will be played in the city of San Francisco. In high school baseball, the Reagan Rattlers will face the Lake Travis Cavaliers tonight in Game 1 of that Class 6A regional final. The best-of-3 series with the winner advancing the state. The Rattlers have won 10 straight games overall, including their first 7 in the playoffs. The last 2 times Reagan and Lake Travis played, one game was decided by a single run and the other was a tie. These are 2 of the best 6A teams in the area, so it's fitting they have to face each other with the state tournament on the line.
To end the season, we had a few wins under our belt, and then we're undefeated in the playoffs so far. So, it's really big to have that momentum moving into the 5th round and hopefully keep it going.
We've played them a couple times before, and we know they're a solid team. But we match up pretty well, and I think we're going to get the job done.
Game 1 between Reagan and Lake Travis is 7:30 tonight at any ISD Sports Park. American teenager Coco Gauff has reached her first Grand Slam final by beating Martina Trevisan 6-3, 6-1 at the French Open. The 18th-seeded Gauff will face #1 Iga Swiatek for the championship on Saturday.
Best of luck to her. Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
We'll be right back. After 21 people were shot and killed inside of Robb Elementary in Uvalde, and then just yesterday, another active shooter situation in Tulsa, there are so many calls for something to change. A lot of people looking to politicians, lawmakers to make that change. Let's talk about what is or is not happening at this point. Let's bring in Scott Braddock, the editor of the Quorum Report, to talk about that. Scott, we always appreciate your political insight. I'm so sorry. We just introduced you. We got to cut you off here because
no worries. I'll step aside for the president.
Thank you. President Joe Biden is expected to address the nation here on gun violence. We were waiting on that. Let's listen in.
As we entered those hallowed grounds, we saw rows and rows of crosses among the rows of headstones with other emblems of belief, honoring those who paid the ultimate price on battlefields around the world. The day before, we visited Uvalde, Texas. In front of Robb Elementary School, we stood before 21 crosses for 19 third and fourth graders and 2 teachers. On each cross, a name, and nearby, a photo of each victim that Jill and I reached out to touch. Innocent victims murdered in the classroom that have been turned into a killing field. Standing there in that small town, like so many other communities across America, I couldn't help but think there are too many other schools, too many other everyday places that have become killing fields, battlefields here in America. We stood at such a place just 12 days before, across from a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, memorializing 10 fellow Americans, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent, a sibling, gone forever. At both places, we spent hours with hundreds of family members who were broken, whose lives will never be the same. They had one message for all of us: do something. Just do something. For God's sake, do something. After Columbine, after Sandy Hook, after Charleston, after Orlando, after Las Vegas, after Parkland, nothing has been done. This time that can't be true. This time we must actually do something. The issue we face is one of conscience and common sense. For so many of you at home, I want to be very clear. This is not about taking away anyone's guns. It's not about vilifying gun owners. In fact, we believe we should be treating responsible gun owners as an example of how every gun owner should behave. I respect the culture and the tradition and the concerns of lawful gun owners. At the same time, the Second Amendment, like all other rights, is not absolute. It was Justice Scalia who wrote, and I quote, "Like most rights, the rights granted by the Second Amendment are not unlimited." Not unlimited. It never has been. There have always been limitations on what weapons you can own in America. For example, machine guns have been federally regulated for nearly 90 years, and this is still a free country. This isn't about taking away anyone's rights. It's about protecting children. It's about protecting families. It's about protecting whole communities. It's about protecting our freedoms to go to school, to a grocery store, to a church, without being shot and killed. According to new data just released by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. The #1 killer. More than car accidents, more than cancer. Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined. Think about that. More kids than on-duty cops killed by guns. More kids than soldiers killed by guns. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough? I know that we can't prevent every tragedy, but here's what I believe we have to do. Here's what the overwhelming majority of American people believe we must do. Here's what the families in Buffalo and Uvalde in Texas told us we must do. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Strengthen background checks. Enact safe storage law and red flag laws. Repeal the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability. Address the mental health crisis, deepening the trauma of gun violence and as a consequence of that violence. These are rational, common sense measures. Here's what it all means. It all means this. We should reinstate the assault weapons ban on high-capacity magazines that we passed in 1994 with bipartisan support in Congress and the support of law enforcement. 9 categories of semi-automatic weapons were included in that ban, like AK-47s and AR-15s. And in the 10 years it was law, mass shootings went down. But after Republicans let the law expire in 2004, and those weapons were allowed to be sold again, mass shootings tripled. Those are the facts. A few years ago, the family of the inventor of the AR-15 said he would have been horrified to know that its design was being used to slaughter children and other innocent lives instead of being used as a military weapon on the battlefields, as it was designed. That's what it was designed for. Enough. Enough. We should limit how many rounds a weapon can hold. Why, in God's name, should an ordinary citizen be able to purchase an assault weapon that holds 30-round magazines that let mass shooters fire hundreds of bullets in a matter of minutes? The damage was so devastating in Uvalde, parents had to do DNA swabs to identify the remains of their children. 9 and 10-year-old children. Enough. We should expand background checks to keep guns out of the hands of felons, fugitives, and those under restraining orders. Stronger background checks are something that the vast majority of Americans, including the majority of gun owners, agree on. I also believe we should have safe storage laws and personal liability for not locking up your gun. The shooter in Sandy Hook came from a home full of guns. They were too easy to access. That's how he got the weapons. The weapon he used to kill his mother and then murdered 26 people, including 20 first graders. If you own a weapon, you have a responsibility to secure it. Every responsible gun owner agrees to make sure no one else can have access to it, to lock it up, to have trigger locks. And if you don't, and something bad happens, you should be held responsible. We should also have national red flag laws so that a parent, a teacher, a counselor can flag for a court that a child, a student, a patient is exhibiting violent tendencies, threatening classmates, or experiencing suicidal thoughts. It makes them a danger to themselves or to others. 19 states in the District of Columbia have red flag laws. The Delaware law is named after my son, Attorney General Beau Biden. Fort Hood, Texas, 2009, 13 dead and more than 30 injured. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, 2018, 17 dead, 17 injured. In both places, countless others suffering with invisible wounds. Red flag laws could have stopped both these shooters. In Uvalde, the shooter was 17 when he asked his sister to buy him an assault weapon. Knowing he'd be denied because he was too young to purchase one himself, she refused. But as soon as he turned 18, he purchased 2 assault weapons for himself. Because in Texas, you can be 18 years old and buy an assault weapon, even though you can't buy a pistol in Texas until you're 21. If we can't ban assault weapons, as we should, we must at least raise the age to be able to purchase one to 21. Look, I know some folks will say 18-year-olds can serve in the military and fire those weapons. But that's with training and supervision by the best trained experts in the world. Don't tell me raising the age won't make a difference. Enough. We should repeal the liability shield that often protects gun manufacturers from being sued for the death and destruction caused by their weapons. They're the only industry in this country that has that kind of immunity. Imagine if the tobacco industry had been immune from being sued, where we'd be today. The gun industry's special protections are outrageous. It must end. And let there be no mistake about the psychological trauma that gun violence leaves behind. Imagine being that little girl, that brave little girl in Uvalde, who smeared blood off her murdered friend's body on her own face to lie still among the corpses in her classroom and pretend she was dead in order to stay alive. Imagine what it'd be like for her to walk down the hallway of any school again. Imagine what it's like for children who experience this kind of trauma every day in school, in the streets, in communities all across America. Imagine what it's like for so many parents to hug their children goodbye in the morning, not sure whether they'll come back home. Unfortunately, too many people don't have to imagine that at all. Even before the pandemic, young people were already hurting. There's a serious youth mental health crisis in this country. We have to do something about it. That's why mental health is the heart of my unity agenda that I laid out in the State of the Union address this year. We must provide more school counselors, more school nurses, more mental health services for students and for teachers, more people volunteering as mentors to help young people succeed, more privacy protection and resources to keep kids safe from the harms of social media. This unity agenda won't fully heal the wounded souls, but it will help. It matters. I just told you what I'd do. The question now is, what will the Congress do? The House of Representatives already passed key measures we need. Expanding background checks to cover nearly all gun sales, including at gun shows and online sales. Getting rid of the loophole that allows a gun sale to go through after 3 business days, even if the background check has not been completed. And the House is planning even more action next week. Safe storage requirements, the banning of high-capacity magazines, raising the age to buy an assault weapon to 21, federal red flag law, codifying my ban on ghost guns that don't have serial numbers and can't be traced, and tougher laws to prevent gun trafficking and straw purchases. This time, we have to take the time to do something. And this time, it's time for the Senate to do something. But as we know, in order to get anything done in the Senate, we need a minimum of 10 Republican senators. I support the bipartisan efforts that include a small group of Democrats and Republican senators trying to find a way. But my God, the fact that the majority of the Senate Republicans don't want any of these proposals even to be debated or come up for a vote, I find unconscionable. We can't fail the American people again. Since Uvalde, just over a week ago, there have been 20 other mass shootings in America, each with 4 or more people killed or injured, including yesterday at a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A shooter deliberately targeted a surgeon using an assault weapon he bought just a few hours before his rampage that left the surgeon, another doctor, a receptionist, and a patient dead and many more injured. That doesn't count the carnage we see every single day. It doesn't make the headlines. I've been in this fight for a long time. I know how hard it is, but I'll never give up. And if Congress fails, I believe this time a majority of the American people won't give up either. I believe the majority of you will act to turn your outrage into making this issue central to your vote. Enough, enough, enough. Over the next 17 days, the families in Uvalde will continue burying their dead. It will take that long in part because it's a town where everyone knows everyone. And day by day, they will honor each one they lost. Jill and I met with the owner and staff of the funeral home as being strong to take care of their own. And the people of Uvalde mourn as they do over the next 17 days. What will we be doing as a nation? Jill and I met with the sister of the teacher who was murdered and whose husband died of a heart attack 2 days later, leaving behind 4 beautiful orphaned children, all now orphaned. The sister asked us, what could she say? What could she tell her nieces and nephews? It's the most heartbreaking moments that I can remember. All I could think to say was, I told her to hold them tight. Hold them tight. After visiting the school, we attended Mass at Sacred Heart Catholic Church with Father Eddie. In the pews, families and friends held each other tightly. As Archbishop Gustavo spoke, he asked the children in attendance to come up on the altar and sit in the altar with him as he spoke. There wasn't enough room, so Mom and her young son sat next to Jill and me in the first pew. And as we left the church, a grandmother who had just lost her granddaughter passed me a handwritten letter. It read, quote, erase the invisible line that is dividing our nation. Come up with a solution and fix what's broken and make the changes that are necessary to prevent this from happening again. End of quote. My fellow Americans, enough. Enough. It's time for each of us to do our part. It's time to act for the children we've lost, for the children we can save, for the nation we love. Let's hear the call and the cry. Let's meet the moment. Let us finally do something. God bless the families who are hurting. God bless you all. From a hymn based on the 91st Psalm sung in my church. May he raise you up on eagle's wings and bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun and hold you in the palm of his hand. That's my prayer for all of you. God bless you.
President Biden at the White House tonight with his request for Congress and his thoughts for the American people, and in particular for the communities that have suffered unspeakable loss in these last few weeks. He spoke of his visits with the First Lady to Buffalo and Uvalde, and he said the families that they spoke with, they had one message for us all: do something, just do something. He spoke of Columbine, Sandy Hook, Orlando, Las Vegas, and the shootings we have faced in this country in just the last couple of weeks, and he said, we have done nothing. He also added, I want to make it very clear, and these were the president's words, he said, I'm not about taking away anyone's guns. In fact, we believe we should be treating responsible gun owners as an example of how every gun owner should behave in this country. And then he laid it out. Here's what the president wants to happen in this country. He said we need to ban assault weapons in this country. And if we can't do that, he said, we must raise the age from 18 to 21 to buy those assault-style rifles that have been used in these mass shootings, particularly in these last couple of weeks. He said we must strengthen background checks, strengthen red flag warnings, get rid of immunity for gun manufacturers, and mental health crisis, the help for people who are suffering in this country. I want to bring in Mary Bruce at the White House. Mary, you heard the president there say, I've been in this fight for a long time, and that's an understatement. We remember when President Obama named then Vice President Joe Biden to lead the effort after Sandy Hook.
David, Joe Biden knows this fight well, and he knows what an uphill battle it is. He knows well the political reality that he is facing. And, it strikes me listening to this that what Biden said then 10 years ago, after 20 children were massacred and he was put in charge by President Obama to lead this charge for gun reforms, what he said then is very similar, almost exactly the same to what he said tonight. Is this time it? Is this time going to be enough? This time 19 children killed. Is this going to finally spur Washington to act? And he knows that unfortunately in the past, it simply hasn't. It doesn't seem that anything has been enough. And, I asked the president just yesterday, is he confident that this time will be just that? Will this be different? And he said to me very bluntly, he is never confident. He knows that even though they are encouraged by the fact that there are at least talks, that at least Washington seems to be willing to try and do something, he knows that this is still a real long shot, despite the violence that we continue to see in this country. And David, this speech tonight was aimed, of course, at the American people, but also at lawmakers, because the president knows that in order to keep up the pressure on Washington, he has to come out and deliver speeches like this and remind the American public and the people listening up on Capitol Hill that the majority of Americans want to see some change here.
Well, stay with us here, Mary. You bring up Capitol Hill, so let's go there next. Rachel Scott on the Hill for us again tonight. And Rachel, every night you've been reporting here on these talks. It's a small group of senators, bipartisan senators. We know Congress in recess, but they have been meeting over Zoom. You reported on this. What's on the table here? What's potentially viable?
Well, David, some of what the president outlined tonight, some of it, not all of it, is on the table in these bipartisan discussions that have been playing out in the Senate. We know that expanding background checks, for one, is something that senators are discussing. They are also discussing red flag laws, which would temporarily take away guns from people who are considered dangerous, or possibly providing an incentive like grants to states who enact or boost or bolden those red flag laws. Republicans also want to see more money for school security security, for mental health. And as Mary points out, the majority of Americans do want something done on this issue. The majority of Americans do support expanded background checks. They do support red flag laws. But of course, this will be an uphill challenge. These talks are very delicate because Democrats need the support of at least 10 Republicans in order to get any legislation passed in the Senate, David.
Yeah, that's the political reality. And when you talk about the majority of Americans, we're not talking about a simple majority. This is the vast majority in the polling across the board in recent years on this. Rachel, a quick follow to you, because you mentioned stronger background checks, perhaps stronger red flag warnings are on the table with these bipartisan senators. Of course, you mentioned there's a major hurdle because they would then need to get significant Republican support even for that. But you heard the president there talk about banning assault weapons in this country. Take Texas, for example, where we know the suspect, authorities say, turned 18. The next day, he bought that AR-15 style rifle. Would anything you're hearing being discussed right now affect a purchase like that?
You know, David, it may not have been enough to stop the suspect in Texas, but the president pointed out that it may have been enough to stop other suspects in other mass shootings that have happened in this country. Democrats do want to go further. They want to ban assault weapons outright. They do want to raise the legal age limit required to purchase an AR-15 style weapon. But I could tell you I've been talking to a lot of Republican sources over the course of the last few days, and for them, that is a non-starter. So Democrats know that they may not be able to get everything, but they want to be able to get something here. 30 years of congressional inaction on this issue, David, and they want this time to be different.
Yeah, just to underscore that one point you just made, this notion the president said to raise the age in the country from 18 to 21 on these AR-15 style weapons, that's off the table for Republicans?
Off the table, from what I am told from Republican sources in the Senate. That is something that they do not want. That is a non-starter for them at this point, David.
All right, Rachel Scott, who continues to report this out from Capitol Hill for us. Rachel, thank you. Let's bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, in Washington as well. Pierre, we heard the president say this again. He has said this in the recent weeks after previous mass shootings and now after Tulsa has been added to the list here. He said once again that we should reinstate the assault weapons ban that passed in '94 with bipartisan support. We know that lasted 10 years. It was allowed to expire when Republicans were in control. He talked about the stats after it expired. He said mass shootings went down while the assault weapons ban was in effect. When they expired in 2004, he said those weapons were allowed to be sold again. Mass shootings have tripled. Has our team had time to fact check that?
David, we think he's citing a New York University study showing a slight decrease in mass shootings when the assault weapons ban was in place and a surge in a decade right after it was allowed to lapse. And in fact, we know we've seen a dramatic rise in mass shootings recently, so that is not in debate, David.
And one other thing, Pierre, while we have you, it's something you've been reporting out for many, many weeks now. Even before these most recent mass shootings, you were telling us that law enforcement sources, they're aware, obviously, of this problem of gun violence in the country, of these mass shootings, but there's a double concern right now because of the pandemic this country has been living through. 2.5 years now, the mental health toll on top of what we already know are people suffering and an issue with weapons in this country that they think that you were telling us, they were warning that this could be a very difficult summer ahead.
In fact, David, they've been talking about how the pandemic exacerbated what I call the misery index and others call the misery index, that people are unstable, they're angry, and they have an incredible access to guns, which sales have been skyrocketing in recent years. So it's a interesting, terrible convergence the sources are talking about. And, David, they have been warning repeatedly that this lone wolf factor of people who have all kinds of different kinds of grievances, from anger about politics to mental health issues. They are now taking access to these weapons and going out and killing people. The FBI director said it is our most imminent threat.
Pierre Thomas with us as well. Thank you. I want to bring in Marcus Moore in Texas tonight. He's in San Antonio. Marcus, you heard the president there say you can't buy a pistol in Texas, but you can buy an AR-15 style rifle that we saw used in Uvalde. This suspect had turned 18, went to buy it the next day, bought another weapon a couple of days later. Governor Abbott in Texas had supported at one point in recent years red flag warnings of some sort that perhaps might have set up some sort of red flag with this suspect or perhaps with others, but that fell by the wayside.
Yeah, it did. That was in response, David, to the shooting there at the school in Santa Fe back in 2018. 10 people were killed there. And at the time, he asked lawmakers to consider perhaps red flag laws, putting those on the books, or at least to investigate and explore whether or not those types of laws would be effective here, and essentially taking guns or allowing the courts to take guns away from anyone who is deemed a threat to others or to themselves. He didn't particularly or specifically endorse that idea, but he did ask lawmakers to consider it. It faced pushback, and it kind of just fizzled out, as it were. Nothing happened with that law. And now, once again, it does beg the question, could it have prevented the shooting here? And David, I do want to point out, we are in Texas, and this is a state that has seen a number of mass shootings. In 2017, the church shooting in Sutherland Springs, 26 people were killed. And you'll recall the shooting in El Paso, where 23 people were killed at a store. And so this is something that we're once again here in Texas. They are enduring yet another mass shooting, and many people asking what can be done. And they are looking to legislators to do something, as we heard the president say.
Marcus Moore in Texas for us. Marcus, thank you. One final